Hey guys, it's my Genius. So today we're going to be talking about a type of modified stem, bulbs. And my example today is going to be onions. So I'm going to show you guys a little diagram and gonna like walk you through like kind of like how they work in the ground. So let's get into it. So again, this is an onion, and an onion is a bulb, right? So with bulbs, like they have, so we know how we talked about apical meristems or like the apical bud. So that's like that main bulb that like that main bud that goes out and grows and have the new growth, right? So with onions, they have the terminal bud, right? But then they'll have a auxiliary bud, right? Or a lateral bud, right? And for so with bulbs, like they're modified stems. So like their stem is like this thing right here, and it's called a base plate. So it's like a base plate, and then it'll grow roots out, and then this big food storage would be kind of their leaves, but also they since their leaves are thick and they have this protective like coat and this tunic, it kind of helps them stay protected as if they were a root, right? You know, so like they keep the protection, and they have like an extra layer to protect them from like microorganisms and like stuff like that. And then these leaves in here, so these leaves, they kind of act as like roots, because like when you think about roots are the things that like store nutrients for like the plant to grow, every year, if it's like something that's perennial. And again, a perennial plant is a plant that comes back every year. But for these leaves and this plant, they actually store the nutrients instead of the roots. And what they do is like they'll store the nutrients, and then they'll be able to be saved and stored, because if you guys know, like the more sugar there is in something, the more frost resistant it becomes, because like sugar kind of makes water kind of like gelatinous, and then it increases the like freezing period, the like the freeze point pretty much. So it'll lower it, so it'll be less likely for it to freeze and then die, right? So that's what sugar does. It kind of like acts as a little buffer, you know. So when it's time and the temperature ready and there's adequate moisture and the plant's ready to grow, this main bud, this apex bud, will grow out and shoot up, and that's kind of when you see like onions come up and have the shoots. And then in between, in the middle, there'll be like this little flowering stem. So like once these like buds come out and you see like the foliage, in between will be developing a flowering stem, and at the top there will be like a flower at the end. So you'll see like foliage, and then at the top, like towards the end of its maturation, you'll see flowers. And that'll be like, if it makes seeds. Some plants do, some plants don't. So, but it'll be like that. And then so these like lateral buds, so they can either become like kind of like another like storage unit inside and add more nutrition into it, or in some onions it'll become like a multiple like bulbs like coming out from the side. So you have like an onion here, like when you see like scallops and things like that, they'll for like multiple bulbs, like things like that. So again, they have the roots, the adventitious roots, and then again, this is the modified stem. So you know how we looked at normal plants, it's just it'll be roots, then stem going up, and then foliage, coming out and going up. But now it's just like a stocky foliage, but also this is storage unit. And then the apical bud, like how we normally see at the top, is actually in between, and it hides in there until it starts to break down the stage. Like think about it like kind of cotyledons. You know how cotyledons are the storage units when we're looking at like angiosperms and like plants like watermelons and tomatoes, stuff like that. Well, in here, it's these storage units are the leaves, and when they use up the nutrients in here, then it'll start to grow the apical bud, and that'll come out and grow the new plant. It's kind of like when you see like potatoes you see laying around, even though those are still kind of modified. They're a modified stem, but it's something else. But they're not bulbs. But it's something like that. Like when you leave those plants to sit there, they'll start to break down the nutrients and start to grow the new growth. So have you like again, like, if you've ever seen the onions or any like potatoes or tomato or sweet potatoes that you see that you just left in like heat or anything and just left out, and you start to see like eyes or like new growth to come out, it's because the like that starch and the storage like sugars they have in there, they use that and store it up so they can grow pretty much. So yeah. So again, that's kind of just a little diagram of bulbs, and we'll go over some other types of modified stems and roots. So yeah. So again, bud, new growth shoots out. These storage units get smaller because again, these store all the energy that the plant needs to grow. And then as this apex bud grows up, the flower will form finally behind it, and then it'll mature. And then again, this is the stem, even though it's like a little base plate. This is the stem, and then roots, and then it has like the little tunic covering and protecting it. So yeah, this is the whole little diagram. So I thank you guys for watching, and again, this is just one of the many different type of adaptations that like plants go through to survive. So like for these, like that's why you can plant like onions and stuff in like fall or like winter, like in like later seasons because they have more resistance to cold, and that's why like even like with like potatoes, like that's why people would farm them in like colder weathers and they're more resilient because they have like processes like these where they can protect themselves from the cold and actually like when it's time, they'll use the sugars that they have to grow and become stronger. So again, this we're just going over a little bit of like the different types, but thank you guys for watching me, and I hope you guys learn a little bit about some bulbs, and we'll be talking about some other types of modified stems and roots. So stay tuned, and again, I may be a plant genius, but you can be a plant genius too. Peace.